In the year 2281, 2 centuries after nuclear fire consumed civilization, this harsh landscape has become home to scavengers, soldiers, and dreamers, all seeking their fortunes along the lonely roads between scattered settlements. Among these travelers walks a courier, an unremarkable figure tasked with delivering a simple package across the wastes. This courier doesn't yet know that the platinum chip secured in their delivery bag will change everything, that powerful forces have already marked them for death, and that their survival will determine the fate of an entire region. The courier's route takes them along Highway 95, past abandoned gas stations and the skeletal remains of pre-war vehicles toward the jewel of the Mojave, New Vegas. Unlike other settlements in the wasteland, New Vegas gleams with electric light, its casinos and streets powered by the Hoover Dam's generators. Mr. House, the mysterious ruler of New Vegas, has kept the city pristine, a bubble of pre-war luxury surrounded by post-apocalyptic chaos. The platinum chip the courier carries is destined for Mr. House himself, though its purpose remains unknown to the delivery agent trudging through the desert heat. As evening falls and the courier approaches the town of Goodsprings, 3 figures emerge from the twilight shadows. They wear checkered suits, an affectation of pre-war gangster style that seems both menacing and absurd in the wasteland context. The leader steps forward with a distinctive checkered jacket and slicked hair, his face bearing the cruel smile of someone who enjoys his work. This is Benny, the chairman of the Tops Casino in New Vegas, and he has not come to collect the package through legitimate means. Benny's accomplices force the courier to their knees in the dusty ground. The chairman produces the platinum chip from the courier's bag, examining it with satisfaction before slipping it into his own jacket. Then he draws a pistol, a pre-war 9mm with a distinctive checkered grip to match his suit. He points it at the courier's forehead and speaks words that will echo through the courier's mind for months to come. Truth is, the game was rigged from the start. The gunshot cracks through the desert night. The courier falls backward into a shallow grave, and Benny's men quickly shovel dirt over the body. Within minutes, the 3 figures disappear back toward New Vegas, leaving nothing but a fresh mound of disturbed earth in the cemetery outside Goodsprings. But death in the wasteland is not always permanent. A local man named Victor, a Securitron robot with a cowboy personality and a distinctive face displayed on its screen, witnesses the murder from a distance. Victor alerts Doc Mitchell, Goodsprings' physician, who rushes to the cemetery with a shovel. Working frantically in the darkness, Mitchell unearths the courier's body, checking for vital signs that shouldn't exist. Miraculously, the bullet passed through the courier's skull without destroying enough brain tissue to ensure death. Mitchell drags the courier back to his house and begins the desperate work of saving a life that should already be lost. For days, the courier drifts in and out of consciousness, while Doc Mitchell works tirelessly, cleaning wounds, administering precious medical supplies, and hoping his patient will survive. The old physician talks to his unconscious patient, explaining how he came to Goodsprings years ago with his late wife, how they hoped to build a quiet life away from the chaos of New California. He shares these memories while treating the courier's wounds, perhaps hoping that his voice will provide an anchor for the courier to follow back to consciousness. When the courier finally awakens, memory comes slowly and incomplete. Doc Mitchell guides his patient through basic tests to assess the brain damage, asking questions about skills and preferences that help establish who this person was before the bullet. The courier remembers their abilities, their temperament, their strengths and weaknesses, but the specific memories of their past remain frustratingly vague. Mitchell explains what happened: the ambush, the burial, the rescue. and helps the courier understand that they've been given a second chance at life that few in the wasteland receive. Goodsprings proves to be a small but resilient community, a collection of pre-war houses and a general store centered around a saloon where locals gather to share news and drinks. The townspeople eye the stranger with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Sunny Smiles, a cheerful woman who teaches newcomers how to survive in the Mojave, offers to help the courier relearn basic wasteland skills. She takes them gecko hunting, teaching them to aim, to conserve ammunition, to understand that every bullet counts when supplies are scarce. Through Sunny's patient instruction, the courier begins to remember the fundamental skills that kept them alive on the roads before the ambush. Trudy, the proprietor of the Prospector Saloon, shares what little she knows about the attack. She saw men in checkered suits passing through town before the murder, and she heard rumors of someone important being ambushed on the road. She suggests the courier talk to other locals who might have seen something useful. The general store owner, Chet, provides basic supplies and advice about the roads ahead. Easy Pete, an elderly former prospector, sits outside the saloon with stories of the old days and warnings about the dangers waiting beyond Goodsprings. As the courier recovers and explores the town, a new crisis emerges. A gang called the Powder Gangers, escaped convicts from the NCR correctional facility, has been terrorizing the region. Their leader, Joe Cobb, arrives in Goodsprings with demands for supplies and protection money. The gang has grown bold, killing travelers and attacking settlements, and now they've set their sights on the vulnerable town that saved the courier's life. Trudy refuses to give in to their threats, and Cobb promises to return with his gang to take everything by force. The townspeople gather in the saloon to discuss their options. They're not fighters, just ordinary people trying to survive, and the Powder Gangers outnumber and outgun them. Ringo, a traveling merchant hiding in the gas station after his caravan was attacked by the same gang, offers to help defend the town if the courier can rally the residents to fight. The courier faces a choice that will establish the pattern for countless decisions ahead: help Goodsprings defend itself, or side with the Powder Gangers for potential profit. The courier chooses to stand with the town that saved their life. Going house to house, they convince reluctant townspeople to take up arms, calling in favors, making promises, and appealing to their sense of community and survival. Sunny Smiles immediately agrees to fight, as does Easy Pete, once convinced to break out his old dynamite stash. Even Trudy loads her shotgun and takes a position behind the saloon bar. When Cobb returns with his gang, expecting easy prey, they instead find an armed and determined resistance. The battle for Goodsprings erupts in gunfire and chaos. The Powder Gangers spread out through the town, while the townspeople fight from prepared positions. Easy Pete's dynamite proves devastatingly effective against the clustered attackers. The courier, still recovering from their head wound, fights alongside people who were strangers days ago, but who now depend on their skills and determination. When the smoke clears, Joe Cobb and his gang lie dead in the dusty streets, and Goodsprings remains free. The townspeople celebrate their victory, grateful but sobered by the violence that visited their peaceful community. They thank the courier profusely, offering supplies and support for the journey ahead. Doc Mitchell provides medical supplies and advice about the road to New Vegas. Sunny Smiles gives the courier a better weapon and a smile that suggests they've proven themselves worthy of wasteland respect. As the courier prepares to leave Goodsprings and pursue the man who shot them, the town sends them off with the knowledge that they've made real friends in this harsh world. The road from Goodsprings leads north toward New Vegas, but the direct route proves impossible. Giant cazadores, mutated wasps with lethal venom, nest along the northern pass, making that approach suicidal for an inexperienced traveler. Similarly, Deathclaws patrol Quarry Junction to the northeast, territorial monsters that can tear a person apart in seconds. The courier must take the long way around, following the highway south and east through Prim, then north through Nipton and Novak, learning about the Mojave and its factions, while slowly closing in on New Vegas and the man in the checkered suit. Prim sits just inside the California border, a pre-war resort town that once catered to travelers heading to or from Las Vegas. Now it's a struggling settlement caught between the new California Republic's expanding presence and the chaos of the wasteland. When the courier arrives, they find the town occupied by more powder gangers who have fortified the casino and taken the deputy, Beagle, hostage. The NCR has established a position across the highway, but lacks the manpower to clear the gang from the town, creating a tense stalemate. The courier enters Prim carefully, assessing the situation and speaking with locals who are trapped in their homes by the gang presence. The Vicky and Vance Casino, Prim's main attraction, serves as the powder gangers' headquarters. Inside, the gang has established their territory, drinking and celebrating their conquest, while their leader, a man named Samuel Cook, plans further expansion. The courier must decide how to handle this situation, negotiate, fight, or find a clever alternative that solves the problem without excessive bloodshed. After clearing the powder gangers from Prim, either through combat or cunning, the townspeople face a new problem. They have no law enforcement. Their former sheriff lies dead, killed during the gang's initial attack, and they need someone to maintain order. The courier discovers 3 potential candidates. First, there's Prim Slim, a deteriorating Securitron robot programmed with law enforcement protocols who sits powerless in the casino. Second, there's Deputy Beagle, a cowardly man who hid in a safe during the attack, but who technically has legal authority. Third, with the right connections, the NCR might assign a ranger to protect the town in exchange for political allegiance. The choice of sheriff reveals deeper implications about the Mojave's future. Reprogramming Prim Slim represents independence and self-reliance, though trusting a malfunctioning robot with law enforcement has obvious risks. Deputy Beagle is legitimate but incompetent, likely to maintain order through hiding rather than confrontation. An NCR sheriff means safety and protection, but also means Prim falls under the Republic's expanding influence, giving up independence for security. These decisions, seemingly small, ripple outward to affect the larger power struggle consuming the region. Continuing north, the courier reaches Nipton, and here they witness the brutality of Caesar's Legion for the first time. The town smolders with recent fire, and crucified bodies line the road leading into the settlement. The Legion, a slaver army from the east, modeled after ancient Rome, has made an example of Nipton. In the town center, more crucified victims moan in agony while Legion soldiers in football pad armor stand guard. Vulpes Inculta, a Legion frumentarius, a spy and assassin, waits in the town hall to explain what happened here. Vulpes describes the Legion's punishment of Nipton with disturbing pride. The mayor had been selling people to both sides in the regional conflict, profiting from everyone's suffering. The Legion bought the town itself, then executed their version of justice. Some residents were crucified. Others were allowed to flee to spread word of Legion brutality. A few were sold into slavery, and the mayor was forced into a lottery where he won survival, but must now carry the story of Nipton's fall wherever he goes. This calculated atrocity serves as psychological warfare, spreading fear throughout the Mojave about Caesar's approaching army. The courier can only listen to Vulpe's explanation with growing horror at the Legion's methods. This faction values strength and submission above all else, treating the wasteland as territory to be conquered and its people as resources to be exploited or eliminated. The Legion's presence east of the Colorado River has been growing, and now they've crossed over to establish their power in the Mojave. The burned ruins of Nipton serve as Caesar's calling card, announcing that a new and terrible force has entered the struggle for New Vegas and the Hoover Dam. From Nipton, the road leads northwest to Novak, a small town built around the ruins of a motel with a distinctive dinosaur statue that serves as a sniper's nest. Novak represents the Mojave's resilience, a community that has adapted pre-war ruins into functional living space and established trade relationships that allow them to survive. The town's snipers provide security, shooting approaching hostiles from their elevated positions and ensuring that only peaceful travelers enter the settlement. The courier arrives seeking information about Benny and the platinum chip, but finds a community with its own problems. The first people the courier meets in Novak are a pair of snipers, Manny Vargas and Boone. Manny is friendly and talkative, a former NCR soldier who now protects the town he's made his home. He confirms that he saw a man in a checkered suit passing through with Great Khan mercenaries heading toward New Vegas. However, Manny will only share specific details if the courier helps deal with the feral ghouls infesting the nearby RepCon test site, a pre-war rocket facility that has become a source of fear and trouble for the town. Boone, the other sniper, is taciturn and withdrawn, a man carrying visible emotional wounds. He sits in the dinosaur's mouth during his watch shifts, scanning the wasteland through his rifle scope, rarely speaking to anyone. The townspeople whisper about his tragedy. His pregnant wife was recently sold to Legion slavers, and Boone's been different ever since, colder and more isolated. The courier can sense that Boone needs help, though the sniper is too proud and too broken to ask for it directly. Before delving into the RepCon facility, the courier investigates Boone's situation. Through careful questioning of townspeople and examination of evidence, they discover that Jeannie Mae Crawford, the friendly motel manager, sold Boone's wife to the Legion for a few caps and personal spite. Crawford hid her betrayal behind a cheerful facade, offering sympathy to Boone while knowing exactly what happened to his wife. The courier arranges for Crawford to stand in a specific location, then alerts Boone to the betrayer's identity. From his sniper position, Boone puts a bullet through Crawford's head, avenging his wife and eliminating the traitor. The act doesn't heal Boone's wounds, but it gives him purpose, and he offers to accompany the courier on their journey, channeling his rage into something constructive. The RepCon test site looms outside Novak, a 3-story facility surrounded by a fence and filled with both feral ghouls and non-feral ghouls on a strange religious mission. The feral ghouls, their minds destroyed by radiation, attack anything living that enters the facility. The non-feral ghouls, led by a charismatic preacher named Jason Bright, have occupied the upper floors and are preparing rockets for a journey they call the Great Journey. Jason believes that ghouls, beings transformed by radiation, should seek out a place where they can live away from human prejudice, and he's convinced that flying rockets to a mythical promised land is the answer. Fighting through the feral ghouls in the lower levels, the courier ascends to meet Jason Bright and his followers. The ghoul preacher explains their situation with zealous conviction. They've been working to repair the rockets for months, but they lack the technical knowledge to complete the launch sequence. Additionally, a group of Nightkin, a variant of super mutants with stealth capabilities, has occupied the basement and is preventing the ghouls from accessing critical equipment. The Nightkin are searching for something they call the Stealth Boys, medical devices that allow invisibility, but which cause the Nightkin severe psychological damage through prolonged use. Descending into the basement, the courier encounters Harland, a Nightkin trapped in a storage room and separated from his ghoul friend. Through careful negotiation, the courier learns that the Nightkin leader, a schizophrenic mutant named Davison, believes the facility contains a shipment of Stealth Boys that will help his people's addiction. If the courier can prove the Stealth Boys aren't here, or help Davison find what he's looking for, the Nightkin might leave peacefully. Alternatively, the courier can slaughter their way through the mutants, though their invisibility and strength make them formidable opponents. The courier solves the various technical and social problems plaguing the Repcon facility, either through speech, science skills, or violence, depending on their approach. They help launch the rockets, sending Jason Bright and his followers on their great journey, whether to death or to their promised land. No one can say for certain. The Nightkin disperse, their obsession with the facility ended. Novak's residents can rest easier knowing the threat from Repcon has been eliminated, and Manny Vargas shares the crucial information he promised. Benny went to New Vegas, to the Tops Casino specifically, and he's probably still there plotting his next move. The power struggle for New Vegas. With knowledge of Benny's location, the courier finally approaches New Vegas proper, and the city rises from the Mojave like a mirage made real. The Strip, protected by a wall and Securitron enforcers, glows with electric light, its casino signs advertising pre-war luxuries that seem impossible in the wasteland. But entering the Strip requires wealth. Mr. House charges 2,000 caps as an entry fee, ensuring only paying customers access his preserved paradise. The courier must raise funds, establish credentials, or find alternative methods to pass the Securitron guards at the gate. The area surrounding the Strip, called Freeside, presents a stark contrast to the luxury beyond the walls. Here, desperate people cluster in the ruins, fighting over scraps while the wealthy party mere meters away. The Kings, a gang that emulates Elvis Presley and pre-war rock and roll culture, maintains a semblance of order in Freeside. The followers of the apocalypse, idealistic doctors and teachers, run the old Mormon fort as a clinic and school, trying to help Freeside's poor with insufficient resources. The Atomic Wrangler Casino caters to those who can't afford the Strip, offering cheap alcohol, gambling, and prostitution to anyone with a few caps. The courier explores Freeside, encountering its colorful residents and complex social dynamics. The King, leader of his namesake gang, rules from the old King's school of impersonation, surrounded by loyal followers in pompadour hairstyles and 1950s fashion. Pacer, his second-in-command, advocates for violence against the NCR squatters who have flooded Freeside looking for work and safety. The tension between the Kings and NCR locals threatens to explode into open warfare, and the courier can intervene to either prevent or encourage the conflict, depending on their allegiances. At the old Mormon fort, Julie Farkas leads the followers of the apocalypse in their mission to educate and heal the wasteland's people. She explains her organization's philosophy. Knowledge and compassion can rebuild civilization more effectively than armies and guns. The followers oppose both the NCR's expansion and the Legion's slavery, believing in local autonomy and shared resources. However, their idealism struggles against the harsh realities of Freeside, where they're overwhelmed by need and lacking in supplies. The courier can assist their efforts, earning the followers' gratitude and support, or dismiss them as naive dreamers whose philosophy can't survive in the wasteland. Arcade Gannon, a doctor working with the followers, catches the courier's attention. He's sardonic and educated, making obscure references to pre-war history and culture that suggest a background more complex than a simple wasteland physician. Arcade offers to join the courier on their journey, claiming he wants to see more of the Mojave and help people beyond Freeside's walls. In reality, Arcade carries secrets about his past, about his father's service in the Enclave, about connections to powerful remnants of pre-war technology that could shift the balance of power in the region. His decision to trust the courier with these secrets depends on their actions and stated goals for the Mojave's future. Finally, gathering enough caps or credentials to enter the Strip, the courier passes through the Securitron checkpoint and enters Mr. House's preserved vision of pre-war Las Vegas. 3 casinos dominate the Strip. The Tops, run by Benny and the chairman; Gomorrah, controlled by the Omertas and offering vice and debauchery; and the Ultra Luxe, managed by the White Glove Society and catering to sophisticated tastes. Each casino represents a different tribe that Mr. House recruited from the wasteland and civilized, transforming raiders and savages into casino operators through the sheer force of his will and resources. The Lucky 38, Mr. House's personal casino and fortress, looms over the Strip, its penthouse lights the only signs of life in the otherwise closed building. No one has seen Mr. House in person for over 2 centuries. He communicates through Securitrons, robots with his face displayed on their screens, and maintains absolute control over the Strip through his army of these machines. The courier knows their path leads both to the Tops, where Benny waits, and eventually to the Lucky 38, where Mr. House will want to know what happened to his platinum chip. Entering the Tops casino, the courier finds themselves in a world of pre-war glamour carefully maintained by Benny's tribe. The chairmen wear suits and serve drinks, operating slot machines and card tables for tourists and locals who come to lose their caps in style. Swank, Benny's right-hand man, manages the floor with professional courtesy. Tommy, the casino's enforcer, watches for trouble with barely concealed aggression. The courier must surrender their weapons at the door, house rules, but they've come too far to turn back now. Benny holds court on the Tops casino floor, charming patrons and overseeing his domain with the easy confidence of someone who believes he's in control. When he spots the courier, his face barely registers shock, just a slight widening of eyes, a momentary pause in his patter. He recovers quickly, that same cruel smile from the graveyard sliding into place as he invites the courier up to his suite for a private chat. The subtext is clear. He tried to kill them once and failed, and now he'll deal with this loose end personally. The confrontation with Benny can unfold in numerous ways, each reflecting the courier's character and capabilities. A charismatic courier might seduce Benny, using his arrogance and attraction against him to get close before striking. A clever courier could present evidence of Benny's betrayal to Swank, turning the chairman against their leader and forcing him to face justice from his own people. A violent courier might simply draw a hidden weapon and settle accounts in blood, shooting Benny where he stands regardless of consequences. Each approach offers satisfaction, but they also carry different implications for what happens next. Whether Benny dies immediately or escapes to Caesar's camp across the river, the courier recovers the platinum chip from his possession or learns where he sent it. More importantly, the confrontation draws Mr. House's attention. The Securitrons arrive with an invitation. Mr. House wants to meet the courier personally to discuss the platinum chip and the courier's future role in his plans for New Vegas. The messenger makes clear this isn't a request. Mr. House doesn't accept no as an answer when it comes to his property and his city. The Lucky 38's interior has been sealed for 200 years, and entering it feels like stepping into a time capsule. The lobby is pristine, frozen in 2077, decorated with Art Deco styling and maintained by Securitrons who have kept vigil for centuries. An elevator carries the courier to the penthouse, where Mr. House awaits in his sanctum, a chamber filled with computer equipment and a massive screen where his face appears. The man himself remains hidden in a sealed life support chamber, his body ravaged by age, but his mind as sharp as it was before the bombs fell. Mr. House explains his vision for New Vegas and the Mojave with the confidence of someone who has been planning for centuries. He foresaw the nuclear war, prepared for it, and ensured his survival and the preservation of New Vegas. Now he seeks to maintain the city's independence from both the New California Republic and Caesar's Legion, two armies approaching the Hoover Dam for a second battle that will determine the region's future. The Platinum Chip is the key to upgrading his Securitron army, giving him the military power to enforce his vision of an independent New Vegas that serves as the crown jewel of a new civilization. The courier learns the bigger picture of Mojave politics through Mr. House's perspective. The NCR, a democratic republic born from pre-war American ideals, has expanded east from California, bringing law and order, but also bureaucracy, taxes, and corruption. They need Hoover Dam's power to sustain their growing territories, and they've established Camp McCarran, NCR Correctional Facility, and numerous outposts throughout the region. General Oliver and Ambassador Crocker lead the NCR's efforts, but internal rivalries and stretched supply lines weaken their position. Caesar's Legion, led by the self-proclaimed Son of Mars, has built a slave army by conquering 87 tribes east of the Colorado River. Caesar, whose real name was Edward Sallow, was once a follower of the apocalypse who transformed himself into a dictator after reading about ancient Rome. His legion values strength, obedience, and total submission to his will. They're brutal but effective, maintaining order through fear and crucifixion. Caesar sees the Hoover Dam as the gateway to Western expansion, the symbol that will legitimize his empire and prove his legion superior to the degenerates of the West. Mr. House offers the courier employment as his agent in the Mojave, tasking them with preparing for the coming battle. First, the courier must take the Platinum Chip to a hidden bunker beneath the weather station at Fortification Hill, Caesar's camp across the river, and use it to upgrade the Securitron army. Second, they must deal with the three families running the strip casinos, the Tops, Gomorrah, and the Ultra Lux, ensuring their continued loyalty or eliminating them as threats. Third, they must help secure the region's smaller factions and towns, building a power base that will allow an independent New Vegas to survive between two massive armies. Before committing to Mr. House's plan, the courier investigates the other major factions, wanting to understand all sides of the conflict before choosing which future to support. The NCR's headquarters in the Mojave is Camp McCarran, a converted pre-war airport where troopers prepare for the coming battle under Colonel Shu's steady leadership. Ambassador Crocker at the embassy offers the courier work supporting the NCR's interests, explaining that the Republic represents democracy and rule of law, a government accountable to its people, even if it's imperfect. Chief Hanlon at Camp Golf, a legendary ranger, shares his concerns that the NCR has overextended itself and that politicians back in California are sending soldiers to die for pride rather than strategic necessity. The Legion's headquarters at Fortification Hill, built in the ruins of a pre-war facility, bristles with hostile energy. Legionaries train constantly, their entire culture focused on warfare and conquest. Caesar himself receives the courier in his tent, surprisingly willing to talk despite his reputation for brutality. The dictator explains his philosophy. The wasteland needs order, discipline, and strength. not the NCR's weak democracy that coddles the unproductive and allows dissent. He offers the courier a role in his legion, promises of power and glory in the new Roman Empire he's building. Caesar tasks the courier with a mission that reveals his intelligence and strategic thinking. The Brotherhood of Steel, a military order that hoards technology in underground bunkers, has been harassing Legion operations near Hoover Dam. Caesar wants them eliminated, completely destroyed so they can't interfere with his plans. It's a test of the courier's willingness to serve and their capability to handle difficult missions. How the courier responds to this assignment, whether they destroy the Brotherhood, broker peace, or ignore the request entirely, signals their ultimate allegiance in the coming conflict. The Brotherhood of Steel's Hidden Valley bunker lies beneath the desert, protected by secrecy and defensive systems that have kept it hidden for decades. Elder McNamara leads his chapter with cautious conservatism, keeping his people locked in their bunker after recent defeats at the hands of the NCR. The Brotherhood's mission is to preserve technology and prevent it from being misused, but their isolationism has made them irrelevant to the larger conflicts shaping the Mojave. The courier can help them reconnect with the wasteland, or they can respect Caesar's wishes and destroy them, or they can simply leave them to their slow extinction in their underground tomb. Veronica, a Brotherhood scribe the courier encounters in the wasteland, represents the faction's internal struggle between tradition and adaptation. She questions whether the Brotherhood's isolation serves their stated purpose of protecting humanity or simply ensures their eventual extinction. Veronica joins the courier, hoping to find evidence that will convince Elder McNamara to change the Brotherhood's policies, to engage with the wasteland rather than hide from it. Her storyline explores the tension between preserving the past and adapting to the present, a theme that resonates throughout the Mojave. The Boomers, another isolationist faction, control Nellis Air Force Base north of New Vegas. These heavily armed xenophobes descend from vault dwellers who worship explosive ordnance and artillery. They fire at anyone approaching their territory, making contact extremely dangerous. However, their stockpile of pre-war weapons, particularly a bomber plane sitting at the bottom of Lake Mead, makes them valuable allies for whoever can earn their trust. The courier must survive the artillery barrage, prove themselves useful to the Boomers' leader, Pearl, and help them raise the bomber from the lake if they want this faction's support in the coming battle. The Great Khans, a raider tribe descended from the original Khans of California, have made their home at Red Rock Canyon under Papa Khan's leadership. Their history with the NCR is bitter. The Republic massacred their people at Bitter Springs in a failed military operation, killing civilians alongside warriors. Now, the Legion courts them as allies, promising them revenge against the NCR and a place in Caesar's empire. The courier can influence the Khan's decision, either cementing their alliance with the Legion, convincing them to join other factions, or inspiring them to leave the Mojave entirely and forge their own destiny elsewhere. The tragedy at Bitter Springs haunts the NCR's forces, particularly the first recon snipers who were ordered to fire on what they believed was a combat force, but which turned out to include Khan elders, women, and children. Boone, if traveling with the courier, confronts his own role in the massacre and the moral weight of following orders that led to civilian deaths. The courier can help the survivors on both sides find closure, or they can exploit the bitterness to further their own factional goals, using the pain of Bitter Springs as a weapon in the larger conflict. Throughout these investigations and missions, the courier assembles a diverse group of companions, each with their own skills, perspectives, and personal quests. Beyond Boone and Veronica, there's Raoul the ghoul mechanic, who has survived centuries but lost faith in humanity's potential. Cass the caravan trader, whose business was destroyed by conspiracy and who drowns her pain in whiskey. Lily, a nightkin grandmother whose schizophrenia makes her both dangerous and tragic. Rex, the cyber dog who needs a new brain. And EDE, a damaged iBot whose repair unlocks logs about Enclave operations and pre-war history. Each companion offers the courier both practical assistance and personal insight into the Mojave's various factions and philosophies. The courier's investigations reveal corruption and conspiracy beneath the surface of the Mojave's conflicts. The Van Graffs, an energy weapon merchant family, run their store in Freeside while plotting with the Omertas to overthrow Mr. House's control of the Strip. The Silver Rush serves as both legitimate business and criminal enterprise, with the Van Graffs using violence and intimidation to eliminate competition. Cass's questline exposes their role in destroying her caravan company, leading to a choice between legal justice or personal vengeance. At Gomorrah, the Omertas plot their own rebellion under Nero and Big Sal's leadership. They've smuggled weapons into the casino and plan to use chlorine gas to kill everyone on the Strip during a Legion attack, opening New Vegas for Caesar's forces. The courier can expose this plot to Mr. House, join it to help the Legion, or make their own arrangements with the Omertas. The White Glove Society at the Ultra Lux has their own secret. Their refined culture hides a history of and temptation toward cannibalism. A faction within the society wants to return to eating human flesh, while others desperately maintain their civilized facade. These investigations and faction interactions consume weeks of travel across the Mojave. The courier becomes intimately familiar with every corner of the region. The radioactive hell of Camp Searchlight, where Legion saboteurs released nuclear waste. The tragic town of Vault 3, now occupied by fiend raiders hopped up on chems. The mysterious Vault 11, where residents were forced to sacrifice one person yearly in a grotesque social experiment. The ultra-modern facilities at Helios 1, where Elijah, a mad former Brotherhood elder, experimented with pre-war solar weapons. The tribal territories of Zion and the Divide, each with their own stories of hope and horror. The battle for Hoover Dam. As the courier completes missions for various factions, the tensions in the Mojave reach their breaking point. The NCR masses troops at Camp Gulf and McCarran, preparing defensive positions along the Colorado River, and at Hoover Dam itself. The Legion gathers its forces at Fortification Hill, conducting war ceremonies and preparing for the assault Caesar has been planning since his defeat in the First Battle of Hoover Dam 4 years earlier. Mr. House upgrades his Securitron army if the courier delivered the platinum chip, readying his robots to assert New Vegas's independence. The Mojave stands at the precipice of a second battle that will determine its future for generations. The courier must ultimately choose their allegiance. They can remain loyal to Mr. House, helping the eccentric autocrat maintain his grip on New Vegas and believing his vision of technocratic independence offers the best future. They can support the NCR, accepting that the Republic's democracy and rule of law, despite its flaws and corruption, represents the best hope for rebuilding civilization. They can serve Caesar's Legion, either believing in his brutal order or simply accepting that his strength will win regardless of personal morality. Or they can choose a fourth path, one that requires betraying Mr. House and seizing control of his technology for themselves. The independent path reveals itself through interactions with Yes Man, a reprogrammed Securitron that Benny created to help him take over New Vegas for himself. Yes Man is programmed to be helpful and agreeable, unable to refuse requests, no matter how destructive. When Benny's plan failed and he fled, Yes Man transferred his loyalty to the courier, offering to help them accomplish what Benny could not. seizing control of Mr. House's empire and ruling an independent New Vegas according to their own vision. Choosing independence requires the most work and the most difficult moral choices. The courier must enter the Lucky 38's hidden basement and disconnect Mr. House from his life support systems, effectively murdering the man who has kept New Vegas alive for 2 centuries. House pleads for his life, arguing that he alone has the vision and intelligence to guide humanity into a prosperous future, that killing him wastes 200 years of planning and condemns civilization to stagnation. The courier can be swayed by these arguments, or can decide that no single person should hold that much power, that the Mojave deserves self-determination, even if it's messier and less efficient than House's authoritarian vision. If the courier opens House's life support chamber, they find a withered husk of a man, barely alive, sustained entirely by pre-war technology. Without the machines, House dies within a year, his body finally succumbing to the age it has denied for so long. It's an intimate, personal murder, not a clean death from a distance. The courier must look at what their choice has wrought, must accept responsibility for ending a life that has shaped the entire region. Yes, man cheerfully helps throughout, his programming forcing him to support even actions he might find distasteful if he had free will. Each faction path requires the courier to make similar difficult choices. The NCR path demands cooperation with a bureaucratic military that often makes foolish decisions, supporting General Oliver's pride-driven strategies even when more experienced soldiers like Chief Hanlon know better. The courier must watch the Republic repeat its mistakes, expanding beyond its ability to govern effectively, but trust that democracy and accountability will eventually correct these errors. Supporting the NCR means believing in slow, messy progress over quick, autocratic efficiency. The Legion path requires the most moral compromise. Caesar's vision of harsh order comes at the cost of human rights, dignity, and freedom. Women are treated as property, defeated enemies are enslaved or crucified, and dissent is met with brutal execution. Yet Caesar argues compellingly that the wasteland's chaos requires harsh measures, that his legion's strength and unity will ultimately cause less suffering than the NCR's endless territorial wars or the anarchic violence of independent raiders. Serving the Legion means accepting that the ends justify the means, that order imposed through fear and violence is better than no order at all. Regardless of which faction the courier chooses, they must prepare the Mojave for the final battle. This means securing allies among the smaller factions, eliminating threats that could destabilize their chosen side, and gathering resources that will prove decisive in the coming conflict. The Boomers' artillery and bomber, the Brotherhood's advanced weapons, the Enclave Remnant's power armor and experience, the Khan's warriors. Each represents potential strength or weakness depending on how the courier has influenced them throughout their journey. The Enclave Remnant's storyline, unlocked through Arcade Ganon's companion quest, reveals aging veterans of America's pre-war government hiding in the Mojave under assumed identities. These men and women served in the Enclave, an organization that believed it represented the legitimate continuation of the United States government, and that everyone else in the wasteland was genetically inferior and deserved extermination. After the Enclave's defeat in the capital wasteland in California, these remnants fled to New Vegas, abandoning their genocidal ideology, but keeping their advanced power armor and weapons. Arcade's father was one of these Enclave soldiers, and Arcade has spent his life wrestling with this legacy. He works with the followers to atone for his father's sins, helping the people his father's organization would have exterminated. The courier can convince the remnants to fight one last battle, and their choice of faction depends on the courier's stated goals. If the courier speaks of protecting people and building a better future, the remnants will support the NCR or independence. If the courier advocates for strength and order above all else, they might even support the Legion, their old enemy, seeing it as the only force strong enough to impose the order they once fought for. Caesar's personal storyline adds complexity to the Legion's apparently straightforward brutality. The dictator suffers from a brain tumor that causes him severe headaches and threatens his life. Without Caesar's charismatic leadership and strategic brilliance, the Legion would likely collapse into warring factions, revealing that his empire depends entirely on his personal authority, rather than robust institutions. The courier can choose to help Caesar by finding a qualified doctor, perhaps Arcade Gannon with appropriately tragic irony, to perform brain surgery, or they can sabotage the operation or simply let Caesar die, weakening the Legion before the final battle. The surgery, if performed, reveals Caesar's vulnerability and humanity beneath his god-emperor facade. He trusts the courier with his life, lying unconscious, while they or their chosen doctor operate on his brain. It's a moment of profound power, where the courier could end the Legion's threat with a simple slip of the scalpel. Choosing to save Caesar despite his evil demonstrates complex morality. Perhaps the courier believes in fair combat, or they want to defeat Caesar at full strength, or they've come to see him as a person rather than a monster. Alternatively, sabotaging the surgery shows the courier's willingness to use deception to achieve their goals. The months of preparation culminate in the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, the climactic confrontation where the NCR and Legion clash over control of the dam's power and the symbolic victory it represents. The battle unfolds in stages, with fighting at the dam itself, at Leggett's camp on the eastern side of the river, and potentially throughout New Vegas and the surrounding Mojave, depending on how factions have been aligned. The courier stands at the center of this maelstrom, their choices throughout their journey determining who lives, who dies, and what kind of Mojave emerges from the violence. If the courier sides with the NCR, they help General Oliver coordinate the defense, using their knowledge of the dam's layout and their relationships with local factions to strengthen the Republic's position. The battle becomes a desperate defense against wave after wave of Legion soldiers who throw themselves at NCR positions with fanatical courage. The courier fights alongside NCR Rangers, the Republic's elite troops, holding critical positions and eliminating Legion commanders. When the Legion's assault falters, the courier leads a counterattack across the river to Leggett's camp, where Caesar's right-hand man, Lanius, the monster of the East, awaits. Lanius is a terrifying opponent, a massive warrior in distinctive horned armor who has earned his fearsome reputation through countless victories and brutal efficiency. He believes absolutely in the Legion's destiny to conquer the West, and he cares nothing for the lives of his soldiers, treating them as tools to be spent in pursuit of Caesar's vision. The confrontation with Lanius can be resolved through combat, with the courier and their allies fighting the legendary Leggett in an epic battle. Alternatively, a clever courier with strong speech skills can convince Lanius that the Mojave is a strategic trap, that conquering New Vegas would overextend the Legion's supply lines and lead to its eventual collapse. Lanius values the Legion's survival above his own glory, and logical arguments about strategic reality can convince him to withdraw and preserve his army for future conquests. If the courier sides with Caesar's Legion, the battle unfolds from the opposite perspective. The courier helps coordinate Legion tactics, perhaps using their knowledge of NCR weaknesses to target vulnerable positions. The Legion's strategy relies on overwhelming force and psychological terror, with soldiers accepting massive casualties to achieve their objectives. The courier might lead suicide attacks to break NCR lines or coordinate with Legion saboteurs who have been infiltrating NCR positions for months. When the dam falls to Legion control, the courier joins the victory march into New Vegas, watching as Caesar's soldiers crucify NCR survivors and begin the brutal process of subjugating the Mojave under Legion law. The Mr. House ending sees the courier defending New Vegas's independence with the upgraded Securitron army. The robots prove devastatingly effective, slaughtering both NCR and Legion soldiers with their advanced weapons. House's strategy is simple. Make the cost of attacking New Vegas so high that neither side can afford to continue their assault. The courier ensures the Securitrons are positioned correctly, that House's calculations account for unexpected tactics, and that neither army can establish a foothold on the Strip. When both forces retreat, New Vegas stands independent, and House begins implementing his long-term vision of economic and technological development that will eventually spread beyond the Mojave. The independent ending, serving Yes Man rather than Mr. House, follows a similar military pattern, but with profoundly different implications. The courier uses the Securitron army not to serve House's autocratic vision, but to establish their own control over New Vegas. This path offers the most freedom and the most responsibility. The courier must decide how to use their power, whether to establish democratic governance or become another autocrat, whether to help the Mojave's people or exploit them. Yes Man's final reprogramming, where he becomes more assertive so that only the courier can control him, raises disturbing questions about whether the courier has actually freed New Vegas or simply replaced one dictator with another. After the battle, the game's epilogue sequences reveal the consequences of the courier's choices throughout their entire journey. Each faction, each town, each character's fate is determined by the courier's actions. Did Goodsprings prosper or get destroyed by powder gangers? Did the followers of the apocalypse receive support or were they expelled from the region? Were the Brotherhood of Steel destroyed, allied with the winning faction, or left to fade away in isolation? Did the Khans find a new destiny, or were they annihilated? Did Boone find peace or remain consumed by grief? Did Veronica convince the Brotherhood to change or leave them in disgust? Did Arcade survive the battle, and if so, how does he feel about the future the courier created? These epilogues, narrated by Ron Perlman's iconic voice, provide a sobering accounting of the courier's impact on the Mojave. Some outcomes are clearly positive. Towns that prosper, people who find happiness, justice that is served. Others are ambiguous or tragic, compromises that saved lives but sacrificed principles, victories that came at terrible cost, good intentions that led to suffering. The epilogues refuse to present any faction as purely good or evil, instead showing how each path creates both benefits and harms depending on one's values and priorities. The NCR Victory epilogue shows the Republic expanding its control over the Mojave, bringing law and order but also taxation and bureaucratic interference. Towns that welcomed the NCR find themselves protected but also regulated, their independence traded for security. The NCR's version of justice is administered, with powder gangers executed or imprisoned and Legion collaborators tried for war crimes. General Oliver takes credit for the victory, sidelining Chief Hanlon and other officers who actually understood the Mojave's complexities. The Republic's flaws persist: corruption, inefficiency, and the tendency to treat locals as subjects rather than citizens. But electricity flows, trade routes are protected, and people can live without constant fear of raiders or slavers. The Legion Victory epilogue is harsher and more disturbing. Caesar or Lanius establishes brutal order across the Mojave, crucifying resistors and enslaving those deemed useful. Women lose their rights and become property. The casinos of New Vegas are destroyed as symbols of degeneracy, and the city's wealth is redirected to serving the Legion's military machine. Yet the Legion's order is absolute. Raiders are exterminated. Trade routes are completely safe for Legion-approved merchants, and the constant tribal warfare that plagued the region ends. The epilogue doesn't justify the Legion's evil, but shows that some people, desperate for security after years of chaos, accept the order even at the cost of freedom. The House ending presents New Vegas as a technocratic sanctuary, with Mr. House using his wealth and technology to slowly rebuild civilization according to his vision. The Strip expands, trade flourishes, and House's careful planning ensures steady progress toward his goal of eventually reaching space again. However, the communities outside New Vegas receive less attention. House cares about humanity in the abstract, but shows little concern for individual suffering if it doesn't serve his plans. The Mojave Underhouse is more prosperous than it was, but also more stratified, with wealth concentrated in New Vegas while outlying areas struggle. The independent ending offers the most variation, depending on the courier's choices. A benevolent courier who helped people throughout their journey establishes New Vegas as a beacon of hope, using the Securitron army to protect trade and allowing communities to govern themselves. A selfish courier creates chaos, with their Securitrons enforcing their will but providing no real governance, leaving the Mojave lawless except where their robots patrol. The epilogue for this ending often includes the ominous note that Yes Man has made himself more assertive, raising questions about whether the courier truly controls New Vegas or whether their AI servant will eventually develop its own agenda. The Lonesome Road and Beyond. But the courier's story doesn't necessarily end with the Battle of Hoover Dam. The DLC expansions explore different aspects of the courier's past, present, and potential future, each adding depth to the main story's themes. Dead Money takes the courier to the Sierra Madre Casino, a pre-war resort sealed since the bombs fell, where a mad scientist named Elijah has trapped them into performing a heist. The expansion explores themes of letting go, of how greed and obsession destroy people, of the difference between surviving and living. The Sierra Madre's toxic cloud and deadly holograms create an atmosphere of horror and desperation, quite different from the Mojave's post-apocalyptic Western feel. Elijah, the former Brotherhood elder who went mad pursuing forbidden technology, serves as the antagonist and tragic figure of Dead Money. His obsession with the Sierra Madre's treasure and pre-war weapons technology has consumed him completely, leaving him willing to sacrifice anyone to achieve his goals. The courier can kill him, trap him in the casino vault with the gold he coveted, or even convince him to pursue a different path if their speech skills are high enough. Elijah's fate resonates with the courier's own choices about power and obsession. Will they repeat his mistakes or learn from his tragedy? The other three captives Elijah has recruited for his heist each represent different responses to trauma and loss. Dog and God, a nightkin with split personality disorder, embodies the internal struggle between violent impulses and desire for peace. Dean Domino, a pre-war ghoul entertainer, hides his insecurity and spite beneath a charming facade, his jealousy and pettiness having sustained him through centuries. Christine, a Brotherhood scribe who lost her voice and nearly her identity, represents resilience and the ability to forge new connections even after devastating loss. The courier must help these broken people work together long enough to complete the heist, and their fates depend on whether the courier can reach them emotionally, or whether old patterns of betrayal and violence reassert themselves. Honest Hearts takes the courier to Zion National Park, a pristine wilderness where tribes have developed outside the Mojave's influence. Joshua Graham, Caesar's former legate who was burned alive and thrown into the Grand Canyon as punishment for failure, has survived to lead the Dead Horses tribe. Graham's story explores redemption and the question of whether a violent past can be escaped or whether it defines a person forever. The Burned Man, as Graham is called, has found faith and purpose protecting the Sorrows tribe from the Whitelegs, raiders who serve Caesar. But Graham's protection comes with violence, and the courier must decide whether to support his pragmatic brutality or help Daniel, a follower of the apocalypse who advocates for the Sorrows to flee Zion rather than fight. The expansion poses difficult questions about pacifism and protection. Daniel's idealism seems naive in the face of the Whitelegs' aggression, yet Graham's violence threatens to corrupt the innocent Sorrows, teaching them to solve problems through bloodshed. The courier can help evacuate Zion, preserving the Sorrows' innocence at the cost of their homeland. They can support Graham's war, ensuring the Sorrows' land is defended, but exposing them to the wasteland's brutal reality. Or they can find a middle path, defeating the Whitelegs decisively enough to end the threat while minimizing the Sorrows' involvement in the violence. Old World Blues shifts tone dramatically, presenting a darkly comic horror story about pre-war scientists who removed their brains and put them in jars, achieving a form of immortality but losing their grip on sanity and humanity. The think tank scientists at Big MT Research Facility have kidnapped the courier, removed their brain, heart, and spine, replacing them with advanced artificial organs. The scientists' petty squabbles, rampant paranoia, and obsession with mundane objects played for comedy creates absurdist humor that contrasts with and comments on the serious themes of technological hubris and lost humanity. The courier's brain, extracted and placed in its own container, converses with them throughout the expansion. This creates surreal moments where the courier literally argues with their own brain about personality traits, decisions, and identity. The brain represents the purely logical, selfish aspects of the courier's personality, freed from the emotional and moral constraints of embodiment. Their debates explore questions of identity and consciousness. Is the courier their brain, their body, or the combination of both? What makes a person themselves? The other extracted organs add to the weirdness. The courier's heart, damaged during their near-death experience in Good Springs, has developed its own personality and now beats in a jar. Their spine, replaced with advanced technology, has awakened and plots to escape and start a new life. These absurd scenarios, nevertheless, explore serious themes about the relationship between mind and body, between thought and feeling, between logic and intuition. When the courier must choose whether to reclaim their original organs or keep the superior artificial replacements, they're essentially choosing between their authentic self and an improved but artificial version. Old World Blues also reveals crucial backstory about Elijah and Ulysses, the mysterious courier mentioned throughout the base game who left messages for the player character. The expansion establishes Big MT as the source of much of the Mojave's current problems. Technologies developed here created the cloud in dead money, the trauma in honest hearts, and the disaster waiting in the divide. The think tank's reckless experimentation without regard for consequences serves as a metaphor for pre-war civilization's hubris, the attitude that led to nuclear annihilation. Lonesome Road, the final expansion, brings the courier face to face with Ulysses and forces them to confront their own forgotten past. The Divide was once a thriving community, a place where NCR and Legion traders met and exchanged goods peacefully, proving that cooperation between the factions was possible. Then, the courier, on a delivery job before the events of the main game, brought a package containing old-world technology that activated dormant nuclear weapons beneath the Divide. The resulting detonation destroyed the entire community, killing everyone and creating a hellscape of radiation, storms, and twisted monsters. Ulysses survived the destruction, and he blames the courier for the Divide's fate. He sees the courier as a symbol of careless destruction, someone who shapes the world without understanding the consequences of their actions. Ulysses has prepared his own form of justice. He's gained control of more nuclear missiles, and he plans to launch them at both the NCR's Long 15 highway and the Legion's supply route at Dry Wells, crippling both factions and forcing the Mojave into independence by destroying the invaders' ability to maintain their armies in the region. The journey through the Divide is haunting and atmospheric, a ruined landscape where the wind carries screams and marked men, humans transformed into feral creatures by radiation, hunt anything living. EDE, the courier's iBot companion, reveals its true purpose through recovered logs. It was carrying crucial data about the Divide disaster to the Enclave remnants. These logs document the destruction the courier unknowingly caused, providing evidence of their role in the Divide's fall. The courier must reckon with this guilt, with the knowledge that they have already destroyed one community through ignorance, before deciding whether to allow Ulysses to destroy two more. The final confrontation with Ulysses can be resolved in multiple ways. The courier can fight him, silencing his accusations with violence. They can convince him that destroying the NCR and Legion supply lines will only cause more suffering, that more death won't balance the scales for the Divide's destruction. They can agree with his assessment that both factions need to be crippled, allowing the missiles to launch, or they can turn the missiles on the Divide itself, the Long 15, or Dry Wells separately, making their own choice about which faction deserves destruction. Ulysses, if convinced to stand down, becomes an ally who respects the courier's growth and self-awareness. He explains his philosophy about symbols and identity, about how people and places shape each other, about the responsibility that comes with power to affect the world. His speech about the courier bearing two flags, the old world and the new, resonates throughout the entire narrative. The courier literally carries the old world on their back in the form of pre-war technology, while simultaneously shaping the new world through their choices and actions. The expansions, taken together, explore the courier's character from different angles. Dead Money tests their greed and their ability to let go of treasure and revenge. Honest Hearts examines their approach to protecting the innocent and whether violence in service of good is justified. Old World Blues questions their identity and their relationship with technology. Lonesome Road forces them to accept responsibility for their past actions and their impact on the future. Each expansion offers unique rewards and consequences that affect the main story, making the courier more powerful, but also more aware of the weight of their choices. Returning to the Mojave after these journeys, the courier has grown from a victim seeking revenge into something larger, a force that shapes the wasteland's future. The final choice at Hoover Dam takes on deeper meaning after the expansions. The courier has seen what blind pursuit of technology leads to in Big MT's mad scientists. They've witnessed how obsession destroys people in Elijah and the Sierra Madre. They've grappled with questions of redemption through Joshua Graham. they've accepted responsibility for the divide's destruction. Now they must choose what kind of future to build, knowing the full weight and consequences of their decision. The beauty of Fallout. New Vegas's narrative lies in how it refuses to provide easy answers. Every faction has legitimate arguments and serious flaws. The NCR represents democracy and civil rights, but it's also imperialistic, bureaucratic, and corrupt. The Legion provides security and order, but through slavery and brutal oppression. Mr. House offers stability and progress, but under autocratic control without human rights or self-determination. Independence promises freedom, but risks chaos without strong institutions to maintain order. The courier must choose based on their values, knowing that every choice will benefit some people while harming others. The game's epilogues reinforce this moral complexity by showing specific consequences rather than abstract outcomes. The courier doesn't just choose good or evil endings. They choose specific policies and leaders whose effects ripple through the Mojave. Helping the NCR might save one town from raiders, while subjecting another to heavy taxation. Supporting the Legion might bring safety to trade routes while enslaving half the population. Each choice creates winners and losers, progress and regression, hope and despair. The companion storylines add personal stakes to these large political questions. Boone must decide whether revenge or healing will define his future. Veronica must choose between loyalty to a dying organization or the courage to forge a new path. Arcade must reconcile his father's sins with his own desire to help people. Cass must determine whether justice or vengeance will satisfy her need for closure. Raoul must decide if he still has the strength to be a hero after centuries of disappointment. Each companion's resolution depends partly on the courier's example and advice, showing how individual choices about personal morality scale up to affect society. The Mojave Wasteland itself is a character in the story, a harsh but beautiful landscape that shapes everyone who crosses it. The desert forces people to make hard choices about survival versus morality, about community versus individualism, about preserving the past versus building the future. The region's history, from the pre-war optimism represented by New Vegas to the post-war struggles of countless small communities, provides context for the current conflicts. The courier's journey across this landscape, from Good Springs to the Divide and back, mirrors humanity's larger journey from the ashes of the old world toward whatever future awaits. The radio stations provide a constant soundtrack to this journey, with Mr. New Vegas's smooth voice broadcasting news, music, and propaganda. The songs, mostly from the 1940s and 1950s, create a nostalgic contrast with the brutal wasteland reality. Hearing Blue Moon or Big Iron while fighting raiders or exploring ruins creates cognitive dissonance that highlights how far humanity has fallen from the innocent optimism those songs represented. Yet the music also provides hope. The fact that anyone preserved these songs, that stations still broadcast them, suggests that beauty and culture can survive even nuclear apocalypse. The main storyline's themes resonate across every aspect of the game. The question of whether the ends justify the means appears in Caesar's brutal methods, House's autocratic control, and the courier's own choice of whether to use violence or diplomacy. The tension between tradition and progress drives the Brotherhood's isolationism, the NCR's expansionism, and New Vegas's preservation of pre-war luxuries. The importance of individual choice versus collective good underlies the debate between independence and joining a larger faction. Every quest, every conversation, every location adds another layer to these central questions. The game ultimately argues that there are no perfect solutions, only choices that align better or worse with one's values. A player who values democracy and human rights will support the NCR despite its flaws. A player who values order and strength above freedom might support the Legion. A player who trusts in visionary leadership could support House. A player who values self-determination above all else will choose independence. The game respects each choice by showing both its benefits and its costs, never telling the player they chose wrong, but always showing them what their choice meant for the Mojave's people. The Courier's personal story, from their execution in Good Springs to their pivotal role in the Mojave's future, embodies the Wasteland's larger narrative of death and resurrection. The Courier literally died and was reborn, given a second chance that most people never receive. How they use this second chance, for revenge, for power, for justice, for wealth, or for the greater good, defines not just their character, but the kind of world they believe in. Their choices ripple outward, affecting everyone they encounter, until finally, their decisions at Hoover Dam reshape the entire region. In the end, Fallout New Vegas tells a story about responsibility and consequence, about how individual choices matter even in the face of overwhelming forces. The Courier is neither predestined hero nor chosen one. They're just a person who survived when they shouldn't have, and who decided to do something with that survival. The story they create depends entirely on the values they embrace and the actions they take. It's a story about agency in a world that tries to deny it, about making meaningful choices even when all options are flawed, about building something worth protecting in a wasteland that destroys everything it touches. And it's a story that, once told, lingers in the mind long after the Mojave Wasteland fades from view, asking the listener what they would have chosen and why, and what that choice says about the world they want to build from civilization's ashes.